Hello. I think we'll get the meeting started. How much closer do I have to get? I have to swallow the thing. Well, good afternoon. We're about to start this meeting. We want to introduce ourselves. My name is Earl Jones. I'm co-chair, and I'll pass the mic to my fellow co-chair.
Jason Nemus, co-chair, also state representative in the 33rd, which is Middletown is the heart of that area.
I'm Darrell Neal, and welcome to the 33rd Senatorial District. This is the district that I represent.
I'm Senator Nemus, and I'm glad to be in the 33rd District. I've heard so. Well, actually, I've been here quite often. So.
Julie Rocky Adams, State Senate, District 36. So I'd like to take this moment to keep the microphone. No, I'm just joking. I'll pass it over.
Scott Schoenberger. I'm the president of the L.J. Schneider Company and a GLI representative.
Bonnie Jung, and Mayor of Douglas Hills and past president of Jefferson County League of Cities.
Okay, so this is the second of the public meetings that the commission has held. We're pleased to be here this evening. I believe, as the flyers that you all have seen and whatever you might have seen on the Metro Council's website, the commission was created last year by the state legislature to inquire into the state of the merger, which was accomplished in 2003. What's gone well, what's not gone well, and any recommendations that the commission might come up with, we will pass on to the legislature. So the purpose of this meeting tonight is to hear from residents of Jefferson County on their views on these questions. We've got some people who are signed up, and I guess we'd like to ask them to come up, please, and present their views. I think Mr. McGraw is here.
Good evening. For those of you who were present on Saturday, thank you for allowing me to make a few comments on Saturday. I was not prepared, as I told you, and I will try to cover this very quickly this evening. My comments this evening are going to be related to waste management, the 109 board, as it's commonly referred to and is under statute. My reason for bringing comments specifically go back to, and I don't remember if it was March or April, but a question came up by this commission when I was watching through Facebook about should the commission be looking at the 109 board? And a member of the board said, well, they don't have any money, so why look at them? And I wanted to correct that situation, and I have provided to Co-Chairman Nemus copies of the April budget from the Waste Management Board, which shows that their budget is $4,012,212.45. So they do have money. And the money, as I understand it, comes from fines, comes from licenses of waste management trucks, the trucks that haul the garbage, things of that type. When they go out and they find somebody who's been dumping garbage and they're able to get with them, they can fine them for that. And my understanding, there's been a confidential settlement recently where they've received in excess of $1 million in a lawsuit. So they've got a number of sources of money, but basically that money comes from throughout the county. So part of my concern, and it will be, and I'll be echoing that each time that I speak, if you permit me to continue to speak at times, will be related to, is the money being adequately distributed? If it's money coming into the Urban Services District, it needs to be spent in the Urban Services District. If it's just for that particular supplement to the regular property tax. And if money is being generated from throughout the county, it should be spent back to the county. Now, we know with the 109 board that recently they spent tens of thousands of dollars buying recycling containers out of some of this money. Mayor Jung, I'm aware, attempted to get some of those recycling units in for her home rule city in Douglas Hills, but they could not be spent out or were not sent out to anywhere other than within the urban services district. So I have concerns about that money being sequestered just within the urban services district when it came from other places. Now, in all fairness, party that said they don't have any money, the 109 board functions under a memorandum of agreement that was dated in October of 2018. It was signed by Robert Schindler as the chairman of the Waste Management District, and Keith Hackett, the executive director of Waste Management, and Vanessa Burns as the director of Public Works, and approved by the Jefferson County Attorney's Office, which provides that the money that Waste Management has will be basically accounted for through Metro government. Now, I have made a contact with a very fine lady, a very cordial lady that I talked with within Metro government last week, because I went through this past year's budget of Metro government trying to find the waste management money. I couldn't find it. I called, tried to get some, just show me where it is, how I can find it. Said, I'll have to look for it because I don't know. And as of tonight, I still haven't received a response back on that. But there's somewhere, there's $4 million that's accounted for. Now, there are some things that I have to wonder about. I know they spent, let's see, $124,795 on recycling containers this past year, but these were ones, as I understand, were used in all of their so-called pop-up recycling centers and the places where we, throughout Metro for recycling, where we can take things and dump them for recycling purposes. I don't have a problem it's being distributed throughout the county, but what do they need a loader with? And they have entered into a 5-year contract for $61,205 per year, or a total of $306,025 to buy a loader. This is an administrative office, basically. So I have questions about expenditures like that, and I think those are types of expenditures that this commission needs to be looking at. Where is that money going? Now, we've had prior situations with the 109 board where they were looking at, and 4 years ago, one of the things come up, the possibility of franchising out in the, outside the urban services district, franchising areas, creating zones, and then having contracts, a franchise with a particular garbage collector. They are looking at that again. Action item 1 in their recently developed 5-year plan provides for the study which would lead to that franchising concept. I have concerns about that. This board, I think, should be representing the entire county, not just picking and choosing into things. One of the things you'll always hear me asking about, transparency. Another is accountability. One that I have got concern about that's recently come up, Pete Flood is a fantastic guy, easy to work with, all of this. I have nothing but positives to say about the man. He has been the executive director of the Louisville Jefferson County Metro Solid Waste Management District. But according to local media, on May the 9th, he was appointed as the co-director for the Metro Public Works Solid Waste Management Services, which basically leads me to the perception that he is now supervising himself. And there are things of that type that I believe this commission needs to look at the waste management and see what's going on, how they're spending their money, some of those operations. Do there need to be some changes in legislation? I will tell you candidly, I think one of the biggest problems this commission is going to have is looking at what are the issues that direct just to the legislation that the state can deal with and what are going to be outside its purview. That concludes my comments for this evening.
Thank you.
I did want to note, Mr. Chairman, for those watching at home or that hear, if tonight was a bad opportunity for you, you can go anywhere in the community. There's the flyer. We can obviously publish it more, but you know, we're going to Valley High School tomorrow, and if that's a better opportunity, Atherton is coming up, Eastern High School, and then there's one at Metro Hall. So don't feel like if this is the closest one, this is the only one that you can come to. You can go to any of them, and we'd like to hear your voice.
There's no other speakers have signed up. We have some people in attendance, but no one has signed up to speak, aside from Mr. McGraw. I think we're going to wait for about another 10, 15 minutes, and if no one shows up, I think we'll adjourn this meeting. Jason, do you have any thoughts on that?
I agree.
Thank you. I'm Cindy Fowler. You were talking about the pop-up junk drop-offs and the loader. I'm the one who started the junk drop-offs in my district. And the reason was because I had so much dumping in my end of town that it was not cost-effective for them to be making runs out to Valley Station every single day. And I thought if we could just know what this loader is, but I know that I pay every time out of my Ndf Funds for the shredder to come and be there, and we do drug drop-off as well. Tried to do, and now they're doing the recycling. Used to be that everything just went to the dump. So I commend them for doing the recycling. It's very important part of, the service to the community. But I was confused on what your point was, other than the cost of the loader.
My point was the cost of the loader. I applaud the pop-ups, and they've got stationary places. I know they've been working in the East End, trying to get a place. They used to have a place at the fire department and on Hurton Lane where you could take your recyclables and put it in. The fire department needed their property, and Waste Management has gone through a turmoil trying to find another location. Don't know just when they're going to have it up and operational, but that's so you can go in any day and drop off your recyclings. Then they have the 9 pop-ups at different places throughout metro government, in and outside of the urban services district. I applaud them. I wish they had 18 a year. You have people like Mayor Jung at Douglas Hills, twice a year will have a situation where the city will pay for people to bring in the shredding trucks, for people to bring their documents and shred them. District. I own some in Douglas Hills, and as one of the home rule cities, I own property in areas that have got homeowners associations, and some in the unincorporated areas. So I see the whole thing. And I've got some. I will tell you, one of the reasons I know Pete Flood fairly well is, well, other things, but I'm not a bit bashful of driving down the road and I see where somebody's dumped a pile of trash and call him and tell him where it is so that it can be cleaned up. The more we can do along those lines and the more we can catch the people who are dumping it, I applaud that. I'm all for that. I used to work, I was appointed by Arch Moore, who was the governor in West Virginia many years ago. I was appointed by him on a project through the Department of Natural Resources where I supervised a Clean Rivers thing. We hired kids to go out and pick up the trash out of rivers and along roadbeds. So I've always had a pet peeve about people throwing trash out. When I was a police officer, you throw trash out of your car, you're probably going to get a ticket for littering. So I'm very sensitive there. I just don't, they've got the recycling units, they take the containers out. I've got a bag of tin cans and I want to recycle them. I take them to a pop-up and I put them in this particular dumpster and they haul them off. What do they need a loader, a $300,000 loader for?
Well,
And that's just my questions.
okay, and look, I don't have the information in front of me, but I do know that most all of the equipment that we have in metro government is old, very old, and has been, just its life expectancy is almost gone. So I'm not surprised that they need a loader. I see that every year at budget time, how bad it is for our fleet and, our trucks, all of that. So anyway, I just thought I would answer that to you about the junk drop-offs.
Yeah, and I fully agree with you as far as having the places for people to take it. I've got an old tube TV right now I'm going to have to call Pete Flood and say, Pete, where can I take this to get rid of it?
They'll take it down to
Meriwether? Okay.
Okay, Ms. McGraw, thank you. We will follow up and look into the loader situation anyway. I also might note, by the way, and I think some of you may have made this observation before, but the data that's been submitted to the commission is now available at the commission's at the website that's been set up. Now, I don't have that address handy. That guy. It's on the flyer? Okay. Yeah. If you want to take a look, take up one of the flyers, you can find out what that website is. And all the data has been loaded there. So I know that there'll be some of you will be interested in that information.
The young lady who was sitting here at the end of the table paid me the courtesy this morning of calling to get a correct email and to let me know that the information was there. I've already been on the website. I haven't gotten through all the information by any means, but I very much appreciate it. That was a comment that I made on Saturday about that would help. But time I got it on today, I couldn't get through I couldn't get through any part of it. I did look at it, it's there, and I appreciate the commission and the county government making sure that it's available.
Would you come forward and identify yourself, please?
So I need to go ahead. So I figured I'd take advantage of the opportunity to greet you all tonight and to share some perspective on the subject that I'm getting introduced to as I orient myself to what's going on here. I'm Kevin Fields. I'm the president and CEO at Louisville Central Community Center, and certainly want to take advantage of the opportunity to welcome you here to our campus known as Old Walnut Street, and to kind of give some perspective. I think with the Comprehensive Review Commission's work, you're looking to reflect on maybe 20 years plus post the city-county merger, and maybe what implications, ramifications, questions, or concerns may come out of that. And certainly I can bring a little bit of perspective. I don't know how relevant it'll be to what your objectives are, but I'd be glad to share. So I guess it would be important to note that at the time that merger was coming upon us as a community, I was over at the Urban League and working with Ben Richmond and others, and at that time there was big concern about the question of, merger and whether or not it would be good for the urban inner city, or whether it would be better for the larger area. And I think there's some time to reflect to decide whether or not that's, what has actually happened. And I would say this, we were then and still are today proponents and advocates for a metro government, and for all the reasons that we all agreed to on the collective as to why we passed it. But I think it's good to assess whether or not we made a good decision. And you can look at it from a couple of perspectives. One, I've lived, worked, and worshiped in this particular neighborhood for just about all my life, and I reside now in District 17 of Metro, and of course you're right now in District 4, in case you didn't know. District 4 is statistically the poorest census tracts 22, the poorest census tract in this particular area. So everything that we do here as a part of our corporate mission is informed by the fact that we're serving those who are in greatest need, children, families, and other partners. And because of the extreme nature of poverty, and it still exists in our society, and you're standing in the deepest pocket of poverty of this area as you sit in this building, because of that, we are always concerned about what resources are there to help us to avert that issue. And I can tell you that one of the things that's happened on a couple of fronts, well, a couple of things. One is the success of our work here, and I think the surrounding impact has been mostly supported by, although we've had local support, a lot of advocacy and support from Metro government, from the council, as well as the mayor's office. But in terms of infusions, it's been mostly federal infusions that have led the way at least, and have spared some collateral impact from philanthropy as well as from corporate. But the question is, did we gain ground or lose ground in terms of what the local government was doing or is doing now or was doing, versus where we were in a pre-merger standpoint? And I don't think that's been evaluated to say, when we were at, Senator Neal, we had 12 wards in the old system. And you think about it from a black community perspective, 12 wards, we had typically, 5 or 6 of those wards were African-American seats. And then we go to 26 council districts, and we still have about the same number of seats. But in terms of political influence, we kind of lose. So the question I'm posing is to evaluate whether or not the needs of the community where they're the greatest in the inner city are better served by a metro government versus not, because I can tell you it has gotten a lot more competitive in terms of the interests being served and needs being met when you look at it from our strategic vantage point, being located in the poorest census tracts, when we have to compete with the affluent side of our community for scarce resources. It is much more challenging, and it's a real challenge, right? So I just put that out there to chew on, and I think that's best evaluated based on you looking at metro budgets that are influenced by the mayor's office, by the council, and how they decide on where to appropriate those dollars, and whether or not the census tracts or the council districts that are in greatest need for public assistance, public finance, public investment, are we in a better strategic position with a metro government, or when we were more, central city focused in terms of the city's interest in addressing issues, whether or not needs were being met? And I say that from a kind of a social service perspective, more so than from a government service, from a nonprofit inner city social service perspective. It is much more competitive, when we go to Metro Council seeking support versus going to, say, a Board of Aldermen when the focus was more on the central city. So just give you that to chew on. It's not a question, but a perspective.
So I hear you asking yourself which way was better. What's your gut feeling on that?
Well, my gut is that it's much more challenging than it was. It's a steeper climb to convince government that the inner city needs the help that it desperately needs, and not that the government is not in tune to the need. I know that it is, But from a political standpoint, it's more competitive. And so the debates are much more polarized around what we should do and not do on the inner city. The debates, come from extreme perspectives versus the old system, everybody was kind of comfortable with dealing with the inner city issues. My gut is maybe it's not a gut, it's just a perspective that is more competitive.
So do you find it harder to engage with your council person? Or are you saying that the finances are not there? Or just...
It's not harder to engage, but it's more difficult to get results.
Okay.
Because the council person has a steeper climb to make the case on resources being appropriated for District 4, which happens to be the poorest district. But when you're competing with the interests of District 17 and all the suburban districts, those are people that our district rep has to convince.
We talked before briefly about equity on Ndf funds and CIF funds to certain districts because, it seems lopsided, especially in, say, some of the districts that have small cities. Their needs are more than likely less than what your needs or what my needs in Valley Station are. But it doesn't seem equitable when it comes to those dollars.
Exactly. I think that's it. Their needs are less, but their vote is just as powerful. So, yes, I agree. So thank you for hearing me out. I just wanted to share that light, and just hopefully that's something for you to consider.
Well, thank you, and we do appreciate the comments and your insights. I think just speaking for myself now, one of the more difficult issues that the Commission has faced is the issue of what was promised by merger, what the actual legislation provided for, and people's perceptions of what was promised by merger. And we haven't finished looking at that fully, but it's one of the more difficult things we've got to deal with. I will just make a comment that we have seen similar issues raised by people in other areas of the county, particularly those further out in the county, who take the position that their needs aren't being met. Maybe they have different kinds of needs, I assume, but their needs are not being met, and that the expenditure of dollars in the outer part of the county is not fair given the extent to which they contribute to the overall finances of the community. That's one of the issues we're confronting with as well. The ones you raised are equally as concerning that need to be resolved as well, and that is there a balance to be struck here? What is the obligation of the entire county residents to address the needs of those with less, where there is a greater opportunity for improvement or need for improvement? So I want you just to understand that that's not something we're not insensitive to, and that we indeed have looked at it. We're still in the middle of our inquiry, but I expect that by the time we finish our report, we'll have a lot more to say on that point. Any other commissioners have any comments?
Well, I wanted to ask you, I know that your representation has been diluted, but it has expanded to where there's more access to more money than what was. So that's what we're looking at. It hasn't been successful and not for the whole city to move forward because even if you have a lot of representation, if you have nothing to draw from, that's not good. So now that was part of the merger, is for there to be more access to the whole city, to be more equalized and to move forward to do better. So I hear what you're saying, but I think we also are looking at, we may have or may not have brought more money into the impoverished areas to move forward, and what we intended to do if we're doing that, and then what we should do in the future to accomplish that. So
I think your assessment is accurate, and I'm just... I want to say something Yeah, no, I think your assessment is accurate, and that's the point I'm raising is to do that level of evaluation to see the net result economically of the merger as relates to, equity is a real thing, the need for more equity, meaning if you have deeper needs, you need deeper help, right? And if we just, versus equality, if you've got 26 council districts and all 26 are getting the same level of help from government with services and investments, then you don't get to the equity issue. So I'm just suggesting, not that, I'm just saying from what it feels like as a CEO of a nonprofit, the competition level is steeper and therefore the successes are, more sparse. And so we don't know the result, but I'd suggest that that's an area that can be evaluated just to see the net result of it. But I think your point
That's
is,
what we're looking at,
yeah.
is though the successes are harder, but there are more to get than have a lot of successes at a little bit. Now there's support from around, and sure, it's going to be diluted, but you have some say in what you had no say in before.
True, but I will say this. In addition to running a nonprofit, I'm a researcher. I study a lot of these issues. And from a political standpoint, the political influence is the issue. And so if you have more inroads politically to get things done in your district, then, there may be more to draw from, but where does that more go to? And so that's what I'm getting at. You're right. So I think we still need to evaluate that. I would love to see empirically if there's any net result that we can speak to about that. I think conceptually I agree with you. There's more in the teal to draw from, but what is the result?
Well, the intent of the merger was not to spread out and take from one and give to the other, one to have more and one to have less or anything. It was to move us together to be able to move forward for everyone to have more, and that's what we're really looking at. For one thing is, without the merger, we were going to be a smaller city and suburbs, and we would have even been smaller than Lexington. So the bigger city drew more money. So where's that money going? Did it really help us? That's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
And I appreciate your.
But I agree, and again, I was a proponent of merger then and a proponent of merger now, but still, the issues need to be examined. Yeah.
May I, Mr. Chairman? This goes right. Thank you for your comments, by the way. But this goes really to the heart of the matter. The reality is there are finite resources, and that means that when you start talking about the intent of merger, it was to create a more efficient running government, and therefore that means with finite resources that there had to make decisions about where the allocation of those resources will be. There's no way to make them equal, because you can't run. It's just like I got a heart and I got a foot and I got a leg. Certain things require certain things if they run as a unit. And that's going to be the conundrum, I might say, that we're going to have, because we don't have billions upon billions. And the question is, at least in my view, is then what is the process, what is the decision, what is the objective in terms of a merged government going forward. So your words are very important in this discussion, and I appreciate you bringing them forth.
So, yeah, well, I was just holding, I wouldn't. So looking at this merger, the bill that we passed, I think had two functions, then we're getting ready to start into the second one. The first one was, what's the information, what's the data, and we're gathering that. And that's not an easy thing to do, but that's the easier part by far. The second part, the one that's much more difficult, is what do you do with that? Because like Mr. Fields said, we have places that have more need. Those obviously, we don't want equality of resources in various areas. That's not the right thing to do. So you have a lot of competing interests in my mind. One is, where's the need and how are you going to fill it? Number two is, who's paying for it more, and make sure that it's somewhat fair to them as well. For example, I've noted a lot, we're just talking about ambulances. That's supposed to be a countywide thing. Well, we all pay, you pay, I pay, we all pay for EMS, but we get zero EMS coverage in Middletown, none, zero. We pay additional 14 cents on our for every $100 for our property values because we have to hire our own people to do our EMS. And so not only are we paying 100% of ours, we're paying 80% of the rest. And so at some point, I don't know what the right number is, but so point number one is, where's the need and how you feeling it, and understanding that the people with the most need to get the more resources. I don't think anyone will quibble with that. Second is, how do you properly allocate? And then the third thing is, how do we make sure that we're putting the money in whatever areas to grow the pot, to make sure that the downtown is all of ours. And that's, when downtown does well, then Middletown's going to do better and Russell's going to do better. But I think, this is a devilishly difficult thing. Gerald and I are over here talking. He's giving me a bunch of background and context, and it doesn't make it any simpler the more we talk. It makes it more difficult. So I don't know the answers to these questions. I don't think, then you have the tax situation. One of the things that was very eye-opening to me, and I'm going to push the numbers, Gerald, because I'm not sure I agree with them, but it was eye-opening to me, and I think it will be to our citizens, is the data shows that Louisville is the least taxed city of its size by far. So what does that mean for state policy? I don't know the answer to these questions. I'm just saying that there's a lot of pieces of information that are coming to light here, and I think those are good things. But I will say, because Mr. Fields brought it up, I was reading today, it's funny that I was reading 1 Corinthians chapter 12 today, where they say, you have this value, this call to be a preacher or whatever. And then you have this call to be a communicator. You have this call to be a servant in some other way. You are a hand, I am a foot. You're an eye, I'm an ear. We are all one. And that's what we have to see ourselves in Louisville as, because, yeah, I live in Middletown area, but I'm a Louisvillian. And I think that's what we all are. So I'm rambling, but the point is, these are devilishly difficult issues, and we have to make sure that I'm representing my people, but my people, are primarily the people in the 33rd district, to make sure that they're treated fairly. But I don't want to take from somebody else in our community. I don't want to take from Gerald's district to come into mine. They're both 33rd Senate mine. So anyway, but the first thing that we've done is we've created the data, and I hope everybody at home goes and looks at that information, and then base their decisions largely based on that data. And then you have to put your value on top of that. I don't know, your values aren't going to be the same as mine and the same as hers, the same as his. They're all going to differ, but I do think merger has been very successful. I don't want to go back on merger. There's things that haven't been successful for my people, and I want to make sure that it is. So.
Anybody else in the audience have any further comments? Well, I think we'll adjourn this meeting. Thank you all. Don't forget, the next one is tomorrow evening at Valley High School.